Hey, it's the Randy Karraker Show on STL Sports Central, presented by DraftKings, where the crown is yours. Matthew Rocchio, Randy Karraker. Sorry we're late. We were late yesterday because we were interviewing Greg Amsinger. You can find that right now at STL Sports Central.
Good reasons to be late.
Yeah, and then Bernie will drop tomorrow morning, I believe.
As it always does. Yes, you'll get your Friday Bernie Miklasz plus Randy Karraker treat on Friday morning right here on STL Sports Central.
And by the way, you can see the entire Bernie Miklasz interview or hear it by joining our Insiders Club here at STL Sports Central. All you need to do is go to stlsportscentral.com, and you can not only hear Bernie and I, the entire program, but you get to hear from insiders like Brendan Schaefer and Kareem Rush and more. We'll have monthly giveaways for tickets. You'll have the access to Bernie's columns each week, an ad-free reading experience right here at STL Sports Central. And don't forget, you will be supporting local independent sports media, which we're going to be today. We're going to honor sports media. Derek Gould reporting at stltoday.com. The Cardinals have come to terms with their 7 arbitration-eligible players. Those would be Brendon Donovan leading the way, but Andre Pallante, Alec Burleson, Jojo Romero, Lars Nootbaar, Nolan Gorman, and Matthew Liberatore. All of those players have agreed to terms and avoided arbitration with the Cardinals for 2026.
All right, right out of the gate, is it an overreaction that as this happened, my first thought was, this seems a little different than past years?
No, that's not an overreaction. I think that is a natural reaction, as a matter of fact, because I think that there was an attitude that the Cardinals had under John Mozeliak in which they didn't care about friction with players. I think that not that it's going to be kumbaya all the time, but I think there is a desire on the part of Chaim Bloom and this leadership group to be more collaborative and get everybody pulling in the same direction. It's almost impossible to have a sports organization in which the people in the organization, whether they're on the field or off, are unhappy. And a lot of Cardinal players were unhappy with the process of dealing with arbitration in the past. These players now will be satisfied. If they weren't satisfied, they wouldn't agree to terms. So these players will be satisfied with their contract situation as they head to spring training. Keep in mind that arbitration hearings take place during spring training. And then you do, and we've mentioned this before, you do what you did with Brendon Donovan last year, and he's all pissed off. Now, he put on a great face, but from what I'm given to understand, the Cardinals always told Donovan, hey, you're really valuable because you're a great, versatile guy, and you can play a lot of positions, and you were a Gold Glove winner as a utility player. So we really appreciate that, and that increases your value in our eyes. Then they go to arbitration, and they say, yeah, he's a good player. I'm just paraphrasing here. This probably isn't exactly what was said with this tone, but I'm just doing it for effect. Yeah, he's a good player, but he's not an everyday player. He's more of a utility guy. He's not worth that much. I mean, the guys that play one position are the guys that make a lot of money, not the guys who bounce around from position to position. And from what I understand, Donovan last year was not very happy about that, and for good reason. And so to avoid those sorts of situations, it's incumbent upon the team that wants to succeed to have these players taken care of. There is never, ever, 100% of the time, it is impossible to have a player be happy coming out of an arbitration hearing, because essentially what the team says in an arbitration hearing in which a player is there, they're required to be there. What the team says about the player during that hearing is that he sucks. That's the only way you're going to win, is by saying, yeah, we don't want to pay him as much because he sucks. Even if you don't say that, the player's going to think you said that. So there's never a positive, Matthew, to a team taking a player to arbitration.
Yeah, and some of the money amounts have surprised some people. Some of them a little bit, a lot high, not a lot higher, but a couple, like $1 million higher than the projections. A couple right around the projections. Pallante comes in at $4 million. Alec Burleson 3.3. Jojo Romero 4.26. Brendon Donovan $5.8 million. Lars Nootbaar $5.35 million. Nolan Gorman gets $2.655. And unless I've missed it, I have not yet seen a number from Matthew Liberatore.
I have not either. And overall, when you just paid $20 million to have Sonny Gray go away, you just paid $8 million to have Wilson Contreras go away, you're on the hook for $31 million in cash and 36 total for Nolan Arenado. this is really a drop in the bucket. And this is something that the Cardinals don't need to worry themselves with, is take care of your players, and hopefully they'll be appreciative as you go through the process of maybe negotiating with them for a long-term contract in future years.
It's especially a drop in the bucket for the Mariners. I mean, $5.8 million for a Gold Glove, a utility guy like that. I mean, what else do you need? Oh, we do have a Libertor number, 2.26.
Okay, that's
Thank
a good
you very
number.
much, Wilson.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Katie Wu or Derek Gould who tweeted out all these numbers.
Yeah.
Gould with another one.
Yeah. And one of the things about Brendon Donovan, you might be thinking, okay, well, the Cardinals signed him, so they aren't going to trade him. No, that's not necessarily the case. A team trading for a player likes cost certainty. They don't like to take a player to arbitration either. So whether it's San Francisco or Seattle or any other team that might be interested in Brendon Donovan, it actually works to their benefit and the Cardinals' benefit to know exactly how much money he's going to make. And the fact that they can start off on a good foot with him walking into camp being satisfied with his contract, if indeed the Cardinals do wind up trading Brendon Donovan, the team that gets him will appreciate the fact that he's showing up with a contract and they are getting cost certainty out of the deal.
This brought another rash of the online Cardinals fans bashing Andre Pallante, and it's one of those opinions that, like, I know I'm not saying you got to be throwing laurels at the guy's feet, but people who hate Andre Pallante and want him to just be DFA'd, I have no idea.
Yeah, they just haven't paid attention.
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, they just haven't watched, and the guy's got good stuff. Anybody who's watched and paid attention and knows what they're watching knows that he has ability. You don't do what he did in his first year. You don't do what he did down the stretch in 24, really for 20 starts in
I honestly think
without that guy having ability.
I think one of the biggest
they're just idiots.
No, I don't think that's what it is. I think that when you watch a winning teams for so long, it's really easy to memory hole a couple bad seasons and anything that happens in them. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people don't want to talk about how effective Andre Pallante was in 2024. And because 2024 was a season they don't want to talk about anymore, they, just like 2025 will eventually be a year from now, they're just not going to actually remember accurately the nuances of that season. Mm-hmm. And this is a fan base that usually does a good job of recollecting those things. But I think just Cardinals fans just are going to kind of memory hole these bad years. And we're going to lose little pieces of context every once in a while that pops up.
And I do think that you talk about nuance, and people, not everybody, but many people don't recognize that to fill out a rotation, you do need 3, 4, and 5 starters. Not everybody's going to be a 1 and a 2.
It's also just the people need to understand just like where the levels are at. And it's just like the amount of people who I see get pissed off, they just go, Andre Pallante's a trash player. Who wants a 4.2 plus ERA pitcher? It's just like, you guys not just look at most of the major league rosters in baseball, and there's a couple 4.2 ERA pitchers on pretty much every roster. That's just how it works. The Cardinals have had very successful seasons with pitchers who started 30 games with 4.25 ERAs, and it's just the weirdness of seeing like he has a 4.5 ERA, and yeah, sure, the context is that he threw 40 more innings than he's ever thrown, and obviously his arm's about to fall off, but still, I think he's trash. It's just that level of that is just that confuses me about some of these pitchers.
I think that we also, again, trying to add a level of nuance. He's trash.
That's what we're trying to do.
What?
That's all we're trying to do.
Yeah. He's trash. He's got a 4.2 ERA. The league average ERA is about 4.2. So 4.2 is right around league average.
Yeah, guys got a 5 ERA. I understand why people complain. It's just there was a lot of like 4.5 ERAs from some of these guys that people were just like, this is garbage and it's unacceptable. And hey, listen, nothing wrong with having high standards, nothing wrong with having high expectations. It just doesn't always get you where you need to go.
And granted, last year, Pallante did have a 5.31, and admittedly, he was not very good. But that doesn't mean
it's like a 4.3 though. About from the first half of 2024.
Oh yeah,
the first half of 2025. If you break down all those games, it is like a 4.3 ERA. Which again, it's not.
And his career ERA is 4.32.
I'm not saying you need to bust down and give the guy an extension, but giving him $4 million. Although fair enough, I think maybe some people were reacting because it was 100% raise for the guy. $4 million still is absolutely nothing for a guy who you might be able to get Worst case scenario, you use him like Leahy because Leahy's a starter, and then you have another everyday reliever who can throw 80, 90 innings, or he's a fifth starter or a rotation or a kind of a guy who jumps in the rotation at different times, and he still has an 100-inning pitch season. Those are going to be very crucial innings for this Cardinals team.
Okay, so are these people saying that they shouldn't be paying Andre Pallante as much as $4 million? Is that
David Showmaker with impeccable timing as you asked that question? Pallante is a waste of $4 million.
So I hope you aren't one of those people that says, why don't the Cardinals have a higher payroll? Because they're paying him too much. They're paying him. They're paying him more than what you think. By the way, again, let's talk about league average. The average payroll, the average player in baseball in 2026 is going to make about $5.5 million.
There you
go. So $4 million 10 years ago was an outrageous amount of money. $4 million now is a drop in the bucket for a Major League Baseball player that has 3 years of service time. That's just the reality of where we are in Major League Baseball. So I think sometimes we worry too much, or we shouldn't worry about what the DeWitts are spending on payroll.
To my point, if you just isolate the innings pitched, so he pitched 120 innings last year, or in 2024, pitched 160 innings last year. If you isolate his 2025 stats for the first 122 innings that he pitches, he had a 4.57 ERA and a 4.43 FIP, which means he's a 4.5 pitcher for the first half of the season last year, or the first 75% of the season. That takes us from that takes us from March through the beginning of August for Andre Pallante. So it's just, again, I'm not saying he's breaking down the door as a starter. I still think, as I just said earlier, there's a good chance they flip him and Leahy in the starting in the bullpen. But the point is Andre Pallante as a bullpen arm is going to be a crucial part to the 2026 Cardinals getting through the season.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about that. And $4 million is nothing for that.
And David Showmaker, no, I don't think they need a higher payroll. He was terrible last year. And again,
David, are you listening to
everything we're saying? This is a group that is going to have some players that have terrible years now and then. If the Cardinals had a bunch of players that had great years last year, we wouldn't be talking about a rebuild. We wouldn't be talking about having a bunch of young players. If they had all been great when you had Arenado and Gibson and Gray and Lynn and Goldschmidt a couple of years ago, if all those guys had been as good as what they were supposed to be because of their salaries, we wouldn't be even having this conversation right now. And so just because a guy who was turned 26 last year had a terrible year, and Matthew just broke it down, really a bad 3 months, doesn't mean that he doesn't have ability.
It gets a lot smaller than that, Randy, because, and you sometimes you have had me walk into the mincer of talking about a guy in a short period of time and asking me, you going to judge him off that? Andre Pallante, because again, that I did March through August for a 4.57. It gets terrible in August. His last 9 starts of the season, he goes 2-7, and he has a 7.52 ERA. It's undoubtedly that is horrible for Andre Pallante, but those are the 40 extra innings that his body wasn't really conditioned for. And so I think it's reasonable to say, is he the 4.5 pitcher he was over the first half? Is he the 4. What was it in 2024? 4.3 across that whole season? 3.78 across 2024. My apologies. Sub 4. Is he closer to the 4.5 guy he was 2025, or the 3.78 guy he was as mostly a relief pitcher and then a starter later in the season that he was in 2024? Or are we just going to focus on the 9 games to close out a lost season and say that's the pitcher he is? I think, as many times as Randy has walked me again into the mincer on this kind of topic a few times, I believe that would be a foolish way to think about things.
I'm with you. And I think we can do the blind taste test with Andre Pallante. And again, things happened last year. There were a lot of things that happened with last year's team that weren't that good. But if you look at what he did with a 3.38 in 2024 overall, 3.78, and you look at what he did as a starter, he was, game level, had a 3.56. So if you were going to be able to get, and he threw 111 innings in 20 starts, 111 and a third, if you could get 30 starts and 150 innings and a 3.56 earned run average out of a starting pitcher, would you take that?
I would, but I think it is reasonable to just to say if he's going to pitch 160 innings this year, maybe he's a 4, maybe he's just let's call it flat 4.
Oh yeah,
I think that's fair. I think putting it like a flat 4 is a 4, maybe like a 4.1. If you get 30 starts out of Andre Pallante and he's a 4.1 ERA pitcher, you absolutely, first of all, you take the $4 million to the bank. That's easy, and it's a win. It's a win for the player development. It's a win for the future, so on and so forth. Again, I still think the most likely outcome is because they've added so many guys who are much more starting pitcher kind of stuff, and because I think there could be a flip, I still think he's going to be in the bullpen. But again, you let him pitch, 70 innings as a reliever, and then maybe at different points in the season you flex him out as a starter and that's more like 30 innings, and he has a 100 inning season. That's great for him. And it's just one of those things where I just think Pallante, I think, is a good example of just how you got to pull back on the reins of reaction sometimes and just take a look at the numbers sometimes. Yeah, because and all the analytics say that he's exactly the pitcher that the numbers say he is.
By the way, this is an interesting one. Joey Bostic, no Brad Thompson this year. Please. Brad Thompson retired in 2010. Oh, God. He hasn't pitched since 2009 for the Cardinals. Don't worry about Brad Thompson pitching for the Cardinals in 2026. He's not going to. He's not trying to make a comeback. Never really came back from the Tommy John surgery. One of the guys that didn't. So, no, Brad Thompson will not be on the 2026 Cardinals. Don't worry about that.
That's why you're the freaking best rating. That was so well.
2009. And even I think Brad might even tell you that he wasn't great in 2009. So he might agree with that assessment. But don't worry about that. They don't have a spot for him this year.
Well, let's talk about a different overpay. Jerry Franks just started watching, so don't know if this has been discussed yet. It hasn't. Want to say the team is overpaying for Noot, considering he probably won't play 100 games this year. Again, Noot coming in at 5.35, all 7 salaries still on the bottom of the show tracking if you guys want the news for today from the Cardinals.
Yeah, and first of all, you're right. He doesn't play a lot of games, but they don't pick these numbers out of thin air. These numbers, there's a lot of data that goes into coming up with salaries and numbers. By the way, the person who had this idea initially in baseball when he brought Jeff Luhnow into Major League Baseball was Bill DeWitt. He said, I want to be able to look at a player's numbers and put a definitive price tag on what that player is worth. These are not emotional calls on the part of any team in 2025, 2026 to make a decision about how much that player should make.
The projection?
By the way, maybe Soto. So Soto might be one, or anything that Steve Cohen does might be an emotional buy. The other 29 franchises, though, they're basically using analytics to determine how much a player should get.
The projections by MLB Trade Rumors had Lars Noot at 5.7 and Brendon Donovan at 5.4. So the fact that it actually kind of got flipped around and Donovan got the 5.8 and Lars Noot got the 5.3, yep. I think that maybe shows you how a little bit of the negotiation went.
And again, Jerry Franks, the fact that Donny is only making $500,000 more than Noot is crazy. Look at service time. Yep. That's the difference. And that's how you make money. Before you become a free agent, money comes from service time as much as it does from quality of play. Now, if you're a great player, you're going to get an outrageous amount of money in arbitration or in a contract. But for players in this situation that aren't superstars, a lot of it is based on service time.
I kind of understand why he's questioning this, because Brendon Donovan is at 4 even, and Lars Noot is only at 4.076 for service time. So Lars really only has him beat by a few, like a handful of games almost.
And that's the quality of play. Donovan posts, and he's been more productive. He's been an all-star.
492.
And so the quality of play, I'm not saying it doesn't play a role at all, but you get more as you go along. Nobody takes a pay cut in Major League Baseball.
I just their service time is almost identical, and they're both in the second year arbitration. And I guess with the difference of their OPS plus, the fact that Donny has the All-Star and the Gold Glove, I'm not saying he should be. I'm not saying that Noot's getting overpaid necessarily. I just think that if you're Brendon Donovan, you had a good argument if you wanted it to get more than $500,000 more than Lars Noot, because they're, again, service time was almost identical. Lars is slightly higher, but he's played 30 more games, and the service time's almost identical. You have a lot more accolades. You got a lot better numbers. I think it's a fair thing to wonder why it's only $500,000.
$500,000 is a lot of money.
Maybe Donny knows that. Hey, you want to go win? You want to go to a team that wants you? Let's keep that salary where it needs to be, and they'll take care of you next year.
That's true.
I think. Is there any chance that he's just like, I'm not going to fight it? I'm good with 5.8. The Mariners will hook me up with a $50 million contract soon.
That could be. That's a distinct possibility. So those are your arbitration guys, and we haven't seen Brule. I don't know how much he's going to make this year. Justin Brule, newest member of the Cardinals.
Oh no. Somebody got mad at us because we were making jokes about that and being like, well, you have to trust Bloom, and it's just like, can we not do both and just make slight little comments about not being that excited about a left-handed reliever?
When you buy a guy for cash, right? You didn't give a player for him. When you buy a guy for cash, you're going to have limited expectations. As a fan, now, did Babe Ruth get sold for cash? Yes, he did. But for the most part, I would say 99.9% of the time, when a player gets sold for cash, that player generally is not going to be a guy that you expect to be a huge contributor to your ball club.
Lips is 150. Does the Cardinals coming to an agreement to avoid arbitration with Donny mean they're not going to trade him? If they were going to trade him, why come to agreement? Like I just said, now he's a really cheap, easy tradable contract.
And if you're San Francisco or Seattle or whomever, now you know if you trade for the player exactly how much you're going to pay him. You don't, and the choice for the Cardinals was come to an agreement or go to arbitration. Well, you could also send a player to arbitration with somebody else, but every team wants to have cost certainty. And that's what Brendon Donovan signing today does for any team that wants to get him. How much am I going to have to pay that guy in 2026? Well, here's the number. Rather than having to adjust, and not that it would be a big adjustment, it would, again, be a drop in the bucket, but if you can avoid any consternation with the player, if the player wants to sign for what you offered and another team knows exactly what they're going to have to pay the player, that's why you sign him today, because you do have a deadline. You had an arbitration deadline to either come to an agreement or file, and these players didn't have to file, which is 100% of the time a good thing. You want to avoid arbitration at all costs.
Absolutely. And good job by the Chaim Bloom and the Cardinals for avoiding arbitration on all these ones. Yep. Now, the next step, we all know what it is.
A different scenario, but the greatest mistake in franchise history, trading Carlton, was over an embarrassingly low dollar amount. It was over $5,000.
It's one of those stories that's right up there with the band being on the field. You don't believe it. It's hard to believe that actually happened. It's hard to believe that somebody was stupid enough to make that mistake. That's what it honestly gets down to. Just like the guy, like how did the band get on the damn field? How in God's name did you go, yeah, I think being this stubborn is the smart way to go.
Yep. And Danny Mac told the story one time about how he was with Carlton and McCarver, and
this part, twist the knife.
It's the worst, isn't it?
Twists the flipping knife.
Carlton is walking down the hall to go to the general manager's office to accept the Cardinals' offer, and he walks into the general manager's office, and they tell him that he's been traded to Philadelphia.
You know what? For the good of labor in this country, I'm glad that didn't go for it, because the fact that he was actually going to accept their offer is total crap on it. I'm so glad he didn't, and it didn't work out, that they jumped the gun. They said, we traded you. And
I would have liked to have had it.
And then he went out there and won, 4 Cy Youngs, and became one of the greatest lefties.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
and became one of the greatest lefties of all time.
Yep.
I know, listen, bad for the Cardinals, but it's kind of a win for labor.
Yeah, no, I would have taken the win for the Cardinals.
Fair enough. I feel like you were also saying that every time the NFL season was going to be shortened by a strike.
Yeah.
Randy's for the working man until it's going to cost him football.
Exactly right. Randy just made the prediction. Justin Rule is going to be the next Babe Ruth. That's what I heard, at least. Well, kind of, once they start hitting him. See, what they haven't recognized, that the guy is going to bring tremendous value, Justin Rule, bring tremendous value to the table as a left-handed hitting outfielder. And this is what the Cardinals need, is a guy that's going to hit. Maybe he'll lead the league with 29. No, he won't lead the league with 29, but he'll lead the league in home runs.
Bubs leads us into our next topic pretty seamlessly. I don't know if you've talked about this already, but it's looking like the Cardinals plan to separate from FanDuel Sports Network. Yes, there was a piece in the Sports Business Journal that was relayed because it's behind a paywall to everyone by Awful, announcing that the Cardinals have pretty much told the parent company of FanDuel Sports Network, you either come in with the best offer at midnight or we are gone, and there's nothing really holding us back from going.
No, now that Main Street Sports missed that payment in December, and we have a lot of friends that work for Main Street Sports, that work for FanDuel Sports Midwest, but this is business, and hopefully those people will wind up doing the same jobs that they planned to do in 2026, just under the different umbrella of Major League Baseball rather than Main Street Sports. But yeah, it looks like things are changing in a hurry. These people's business plan started with Sinclair Broadcasting buying Fox Sports and paying an exorbitant amount and taking out unbelievably high loans to get the company. And then at the same time they did, all of the cord cutting happened and they lost a bunch of money. They lost a bunch of viewers on cable and it just fell apart. I feel really bad about Sinclair having to have this fall apart. What?
Terrible. Bad things happen to good people all the time. It's so sad.
So anyway, things won't change much for you. You'll be able to watch your games on cable TV or on the dish or on your device. You won't have the FanDuel Sports app to buy anymore. You'll have to buy through MLB, but things won't change much. Brad and Chip will still be the broadcasters. You'll have Tom Mead directing still. You'll have the same group of people that are the stage managers and the camera people. Those are all contract employees. You might not realize this. Those are not full-time employees. Those are people that kind of parcel out their services on a day-to-day basis. One day they might be doing camera work for the Cardinals. On a Sunday or a Saturday, they might head over to Columbia and do camera work for Mizzou. They might do the Blues. They aren't full-time employees. They're contracted out, and they will be hired by the same at the same rate by different people to contract out. A couple of years ago, Matthew, 2023, when the Padres lost their affiliation, I think at that time it was with Bally, they had to change in the summer during the season in one day. And one day it was Bally Sports San Diego. The next day it was MLB San Diego, but it was the exact same thing. And I think that's probably what we're looking toward with the Cardinals in terms of their television for 2026 and beyond.
Yeah, very true. And you know what? It's really sad, but that's why I'm just happy that here we're proudly sponsored by DraftKings.
Oh, where the crown is yours. Yeah, you can put some bets on this weekend. It's going to be really fun. As a matter of fact, I was taking a look today at that. I think it's a 46.5 over under for the Chargers and the Patriots. And I kind of like the under. I hate betting the under, but I like the under there. And you can download the DraftKings Sports app and you can start making bets on college football tonight and tomorrow or the NFL wild card weekend. There's so much there for you. I've got Saquon Barkley. I think, as it turns out, Philadelphia has been saving Saquon all year. I think he's going to score a touchdown against San Francisco. So those are the two items I've got, the under in the Chargers Patriots, and I've got Saquon to score a touchdown this weekend. And DraftKings will have your back with early exit protection. If the player in your eligible NFL prop bet goes down at any point in the first half, you get paid in cash. All you need to do is download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code right there on your screen, STL Sports. That's code STL Sports to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or call ccbg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, call dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
All right, we had a chat here that I like. Ellipsis 150. Aside from the Steve Carlton disaster that we mentioned, what would you say was the worst decision in Cardinals history? I guess what your answer would be in the chat. And I said that like on the heels of Carlton, not on the heels, but later on, you have the same huge pitching mistake where they boof up the Raleigh fingers in Vukovic and all that whole situation.
That wasn't a mistake. No, that was all planned out. Whitey asked Raleigh if he would be okay with being the eighth inning guy because he was getting the best closer in the game in Suter.
Yep.
And they wound up winning a World Series.
That's
So
right.
I don't
Okay.
question that one.
So what would you say is the worst decision in Cardinals history other than Steve Carlton?
I'm not going to go with Randy Arozarena, first of all.
Letting Vince Coleman walk?
No, and there were a lot of things that were going on there. It was stupid in 1990 when the brewery had basically decided we don't have any interest in the Cardinals anymore.
Okay.
So they weren't negotiating with anybody. So they traded Willie. Pendleton walked. Vince walked. It was a disaster area over there. Let's see. What would we have here? That's a really good question. It's not like they, especially during like the Walt Jocketty years, like they lost many trades. So I'll have to put a little bit of thought into that one.
We actually got to kind of go backwards because as we were talking about the Cardinals news, we got a little bit of an update here. Great job by Wilson sending this over. Evan Drelich, about 10 minutes ago, all 9 Major League Baseball teams televised by FanDuel Sports Network / Main Street Sports Group have terminated their contracts with the broadcaster. The Braves, Reds, Tigers, Royals, Angels, Marlins, Brewers, Cardinals, Rays. The deals can be renegotiated.
And my guess would be that those teams, because Rob Manfred wants to have everything under the same umbrella by 2028 anyway, my guess would be that MLB, because they're going to have them in 2 years anyway. So why not just get them now and have everybody under the same umbrella, start selling and start building for what you plan to have and hope to have in 2028.
Yep, I think that's the best plan. I mean, at this point, get rid of blackouts, make it easier to find all the games, give people one place to go, one price, stop complicating it. It pisses off excuse me, not just older fans, but even I can't deal with it, and I'm relatively young.
Yeah, so I think it'll be easy. I don't think that there will be an awful lot of consternation. You will be able to watch every single one of the Cardinals' 162 games on TV or on your device. However you want to consume it, they will be available to you in 2026. And again, with that being the case, you wonder, about the employees, right? There are still a few full-time employees left at FanDuel, and we're thinking about them. But then the other part of this is what happens with the St. Louis Blues, because they've got a deal with FanDuel. Is FanDuel, and I don't know if it is, if FanDuel is viable with only its NBA and NHL teams.
Apparently they've been missing payments to them as well.
Yeah.
So I think that tells us it's not viable. Is there more money in combining everything? I mean, the way it's been reported right now is that you'll have to sell pretty much. You'll have to pretty much eat what you kill each team individually in the MLB deal, which is fine because you don't have to incur all of the overhead broadcasts of your own studio and all those things. They come in, they take over all the equipment, things, and in that way, you're just, if you're the Cardinals, you're getting the money you're getting from TV is just how much you can cut, how much you can sell.
Here's what I would envision happening as we move forward here. Starting last season, MLB Network, starting at 4:00 St. Louis time, aired America's pregame show, and it aired until 6:00 St. Louis time. My guess, if I had to make an educated guess, will be that what Rob Manfred wants with Major League Baseball is similar to what you see with the National Football League, with pregame shows on Fox and CBS, national pregame shows, and then we throw you to your game, whether it's a noon game. All the pregame shows throw you to noon games, right? Or they say stick around, your game's going to be at 3:25 or whatever. My guess would be that on those channels that you're watching, whatever the channel becomes, you will get America's pregame show until from 4 to 6 or 5 to 7. And then what will happen is the America's pregame show from MLB Network will throw to a local broadcast, and they'll have a 15-minute pregame, maybe just the stand-up from 7 to 7:15 here in St. Louis. So you'll have BT and Chip doing their little preview and getting the commercials in before the first pitch, pitching pairings, all of that stuff. And then when the game is over, they'll throw it back to MLB Tonight on MLB Network. So I think it'll look a lot more like the NFL broadcasts, except you'll be watching a local broadcast, and you'll see Chip and Brad every night. But rather than having a local pregame show, my guess would be that if not this year, in the very near future, that you'll have America's pregame show, and you'll be watching all of baseball until you get to your broadcast at 7 o'clock for a 7:15 game. That's just my guess.
I think that's a pretty good guess, Randy. I'll take I'll buy that guess for a little bit. We have some people guessing for the topic. We've talked about this a lot. Not signing Max Scherzer.
You know what's interesting though? The Cardinals didn't sign Max Scherzer, and yes, they should have signed Max Scherzer. He wanted to be here. But I actually did this for my my story time with Uncle Randy tonight on Channel 4 at 6 o'clock. In 2015, when Max Scherzer would have been spending his first year with the Cardinals, Adam Wainwright went down in April with a torn Achilles in Milwaukee, game in Milwaukee. The Cardinals starting rotation that year was John Lackey, Lance Lynn, Michael Wacha, Carlos Martinez, Jaime Garcia. Since the mound was lowered in 1969, the Cardinals runs allowed in 2015 with no Scherzer and no Wainwright are the second lowest allowed since the mound was lowered. The Cardinals starting pitchers that year, without Max Scherzer, without Adam Wainwright, went 72-42 with a 2.99 ERA.
Pretty good.
Oh
my God.
Well, it would have been great to have Scherzer here for the duration of the 7 years. For 2015, in and of itself, the team won 100 games. Now, would it have been a whole lot better off to have him for the playoffs? Absolutely. He probably would have won in the playoffs because both Wacha and Lynn got hurt down the stretch in 2015. But going back to why they didn't sign Scherzer, because they thought with Wainwright, Lackey for one more year, Wacha was heading into his third year, Martinez was still a young pitcher, Garcia was still relatively young, and who did I just leave? Lynn, Martinez, Wacha, Garcia. Pretty young guys.
Yeah.
And so the Cardinals thought that they were okay with their starting pitching at that point. And another factor to include here is that before that 2015 season, or at the end of the 2014 season, Oscar Taveras had died in that car accident. So the Cardinals were trying to rebuild the offense. They weren't really as concerned about building the defense because they thought that they were losing a superstar quality player in Taveras at the end of 2014. And again, remember this, another player they planned on having as an offensive impact guy for 4 or 5 years, Alan Craig, had hurt his foot, and they traded him for Lackey during the 2014 season. So the Cardinals' concentration actually at that time that Scherzer wanted to come here was on offense. Would I have loved to have had Max Scherzer? And in hindsight, do you sign him because he wants to give you a hometown discount? Yes. But I can also appreciate where the Cardinals were coming from. Both things can be true. You should have signed Scherzer, but you didn't because you had other fish to fry because of the injury to Craig and the death of Taveras.
Yes, and also we have Ellipses 150, and speaking of the death of Taveras, the Ozuna trade is a good pick. That trade was pretty bad. The Tommy Edman trade for Fetty was also pretty bad. Again, the Ozuna trade, you need to have the context of how desperate, how absolutely desperate. And everybody, and listen,
I've asked you before.
I bet you as a Cardinals fan, you agreed that they were desperate for a big bat in the outfield that offseason.
What
you just didn't like the outcome.
What did you not like about getting a Silver Slugger, Gold Glove winner that had a 912 OPS, 37 homers, and like 120 RBIs? What did you not like about getting on the day the trade was made? What did you not like about getting Marcell Ozuna from the Marlins?
You're not.
Tell me what you didn't like about the years that he had leading up to that.
I don't think you're gonna like the answer. And it just
it's a nonsensical answer.
Yes, because it has to do with Giancarlo Stanton and Christian Yelich. And then we got to go into the fact that Giancarlo Stanton, you could have paid him $1 billion and he wasn't going to come play baseball in St. Louis. Yep. And Yelich at the time was not available.
And Yelich's numbers were not. Yelich was not in Miami what he became in Milwaukee. I think there's this belief or this thought process that Christian Yelich has always been this dynamic hitter. When Christian Yelich was in Miami, his career high in home runs was 21. He did have 98 RBIs. He had turned in OPSs of 766, 764, 782, 859, and then in his last year in Miami, 807. He did turn it up big time once he got to Milwaukee. But the fact of the matter is, Marcell Ozuna was a much more productive hitter in Miami than Christian Yelich was overall.
Yeah, it's so fair.
With Miami,
he was kind of
had an 800 OPS. He hit how many home runs did he hit? 59 homers in 5 years with Miami.
It was a little. And we have
and your OPS plus. Let's go with your OPS plus.
Yeah, Oligo Palazzo says, "Well, that season was an outlier." Well, the thing about that is,
which was
his last big season in Miami. The thing about that is, it was also his age 26 season. He had been an All-Star his age 25 season, and in 40 less at bats. Yeah, he had 23 home runs and 76 RBI. But I mean, a guy having a career year isn't like a shocking thing to happen. And he
was coming into his own.
And he later on in Atlanta hit 40 home runs and 39 home runs. So it wasn't like that 37 home runs that season was like a fake showing of his power.
Two-time All-Star on a team that had Stanton. So he wasn't the only guy on the team.
He also hit 29 in 2019, playing half of his games in Busch Stadium, which we talked about being a crappy place to hit home runs. And he hit 29 in 135 less at bats than he hit the 37. So if he goes for a full 613 at bat season in 2019, he might hit 33, 34 home runs, and you can't call it an outlier season the year before. It was him growing. It was you were getting a 26-year-old bat who just erupted. Like, where's the line between an outlier season and a guy who's growing into his potential, growing into his maturity? Somebody else says, where was it? It's just like, I don't, I understand they were desperate at the time of Tavares' death. I don't blame them for making that move at the time. I'm just looking back on it and saying it was bad. Yeah, you can't do too much hindsight, even in a discussion like this. You got to still deal with it with the facts that the team had in the moment, because the team didn't make the trade with hindsight. So like, the deal might have not been great, but you gotta keep a little bit of like what we knew in the moment, what was true in the moment. Yes, the fact that they immediately turned around and traded Christian Yelich to a not very large market right afterwards, disconcerting for fans, but the timeline is important.
I would agree with that the timeline is important. All right, college football tonight. Who you got?
This is a tough one.
This is Miami.
I got to check what the line is right now.
And Ole Miss.
Okay, what's the line at right now? So we got Miami with a 3-point favored. Total is 53.5. And the money line, if you do take the underdogs, you're getting plus 136. That means you win 136 for every 100 that you lay down. I think the coaching, the lack of their like running backs coach and things like that aren't actually going to be material to their success on the field. But it is some good fodder for the locker room. And so I think I'm going to take Ole Miss.
Ooh, I like this. To cover
plus 3.5, because I'm gonna buy me a half point. So I get in, so I'm still cashing when Miami wins this by 3 points.
Okay, good.
But I'm going Ole Miss, buying myself a half a point. I'm going Ole Miss plus 3.5.
I know that
or
Georgia,
Old Miss if I'm Paul Bissonnette.
Yeah, okay. I know Georgia is a very physical team, but they aren't as physical as Miami. Miami might be the most physical team in the country. For Miami to do what they did to Ohio State is big time. And as much as I love the story of Ole Miss this year, and I don't care if Lane Kiffin gets some money from LSU. I would love for Ole Miss to be able to say, yeah, it really wasn't about you, Lane. It was about the players, because he's an idiot. I don't like him at all, but I still think Miami's going to win the game. I would like Ole Miss to win it, but I think Miami, with as physical as they are, with a quarterback who's already won a national championship, with a great defensive line, I think Chambliss will have his problems tonight. So I'm picking Miami, and I think they'll probably win by 11 or 12. And then tomorrow night,
So
Indiana's so good.
By the way, they did the dual press conference with Golden and Cristobal for Miami and Ole Miss. And I would describe it as the kids would. Todd Golden was mogging Cristobal, and that means he just
Pete Golding, you mean?
Pete Golding. I'm gonna say Todd Golden.
Yeah.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
Pete Golding, my bad. Wow, those names are too close. I think I've made that mistake before already. Pete Golding, excuse me, he just looked so calm. Cristobal, every time they both got questions, Cristobal would give this long answer, and he would just sit there and just kind of like give this like really matter of fact, short clip defensive coordinator kind of answer. He won the press conference, and I think he's going to win the game.
I would love to see it for all of our Ole Miss fans that are tuned in.
St. Louis does send a lot of kids down there.
Yeah, so it'll be fun. All right, and then Oregon, Indiana tomorrow night. And you know what would be interesting is the two longest serving recruiting coordinators for Nick Saban at Alabama were Curt Cignetti and Mario Cristobal. So that'd be interesting to see those two in the finals against each other tonight. It's obviously, just like in the other game, former Saban assistants Dan Lanning of Oregon and Curt Cignetti of Indiana, and Indiana looks unstoppable to me.
Yeah, I don't know how I can go with Oregon here, except for the whole it's hard to beat a team twice in 1 year kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Although I think the adage is hard to beat a team 3 times in 1 year. I think IU wins this one. I'm fully on the Curt Cignetti train. Yeah, I'll take Indiana in this game. What's the numbers we're looking at in this one? We got I don't even have to buy the extra point. Indiana 3.5 minus 3.5. You can get Oregon for plus 150 on the money line. The over under little smaller tomorrow, over under of 48.5. I think on that one I'm going to zone in on an over of 48.5 instead of trying to pick the game. I don't see any point. I think Indiana's going to win by like 6 or 7. So I could take them on I'm getting the exact same odds on Indiana minus 3.5 and the over of 48.5.
Interesting.
I don't know what to do on this one. This is a tricky one. I might just take Indiana and parlay it with the over 48.5. Actually, I think that's what I'm going to do. Okay.
A couple of quick NFL notes. Number one, the Dolphins, if you haven't heard, fired Mike McDaniel, their head coach. Okay. We wondered, yes.
So we were talking about this on text message because the report that came out right after Harbaugh was fired was that his agent had heard from 7 teams. At the time, there were 6 openings. So I texted you and we asked each other, there's at least one team that has not yet fired their coach. There could have been multiple for all we know, but there was at least one that had not yet fired their coach who had clearly talked to Jim Harbaugh's agent. Your first guess was?
Dolphins.
The Dolphins.
Yeah, that's just...
They fired Mike McDaniel, and there it is.
That's how Stephen Ross rolls. Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if they would get involved in the sweepstakes. By the way, one of the other breadcrumbs that's been left here is that Harbaugh said he's not going to start interviewing with teams until next week. Dolphins expected to name a general manager tomorrow, and Stephen Ross said, we're going to let our new general manager pick the next head coach.
Interesting. Both Ellipses and Bub say that McDaniel could be the Lions' new offense coordinator, the Ravens' head coach. Brendan Schaefer of STL Sports Central threw out this, and I liked it so much I hated it. Mike McDaniel decides, you know where's a nice cushy soft landing for me to go be the offensive coordinator?
Where?
Kansas City.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, just okay. I mean, maybe and everyone's going to give you a little bit of grace for the first year because Pat's not going to be completely healthy. Then that second year, you clear a couple contracts off the books, you re-up a weapon or two, you get that offensive line figured out, you get a couple defensive players in the draft. Bing, bang, boom. Mike McDaniels wins the Super Bowl as the offensive coordinator, and he's head coach in 3 years.
You could see that. Now, he runs that Shanahan zone. He's buddies with Kyle and McVay and that gang. Be interesting. You know where else? Lions would be interesting.
Yep, Lions is a good one.
But if he would also, he was in Houston at one point, and Houston's offense, their defense has been awesome.
Yeah,
they might have to make a change. And somebody else fired. Oh, Tampa fired their offensive coordinator. So there's teams out there that will utilize that quirky personality of Mike McDaniel.
If you're Todd Bowles, though, there's no way I'm hiring Mike. I'm hiring a coach in waiting kind of candidate to be my offensive coordinator.
That's how you win.
That's how you win, but that's also how you get fired in week 9.
Yeah.
Because we got a guy who knows how to be an NFL head coach right here.
I love secure guys. Vermeil on his first staff here had 6 former NFL head coaches.
I was always very partial to Al Saunders. I never got to meet him, but
guy.
everything I read about Al Saunders seemed like he was an unbelievably underrated and incredible coach.
Yeah, he was great. And those receivers, and when we talked to Ricky Prohl last week, that interview is still up here at STL Sports Central. Ricky Prohl talked about Al Saunders and how effective he was as a receivers coach.
I love Cards in 28's chat here. We should have taken each and every one of them to ARB, even the ones not arbitration eligible. That would teach these guys to play better.
There you go. That's what we need. And then you see I'm wearing the Billikens today. Matthew and I are very happy about the Billikens winning at the Siegel Center.
Done.
Yeah, great job. 14-1. First time they've ever won at VCU on that court. And Mizzou winning for the first time ever at Rupp Arena last night in Lexington, Kentucky. So a couple of big wins for the Billikens and Mizzou. Mizzou coming back from 8 down with 4.5 minutes left. That was impressive, and obviously everything that SLU did was impressive.
I mean, yeah, both nights were incredible. You can go back and watch the post-game coverage of the Mizzou game because they're going to be able to break it down better than I can because I was watching the SLU game. So go back and watch that. Grant Salzman was joined by former Missouri sharpshooter Kareem Rush breaking down that game. It was a fantastic post-game. They really broke it down. But the SLU stuff, that's where I'm tied in, so that's what I'm going to talk about, was, absolutely incredible. I mean, the fact that they won that game, Randy, it's there's a lot of stats I could go to. I'll just go to kind of what my most recent conclusion has been, which is they lose that game every time last year. The three-point shots weren't falling. Robbie Avila had single-digit points. Ishan Sharma didn't score at all. Amari McCautry was up and down throughout the game. Trey Green didn't hit only a couple shots. All these things you would have listed as to how they're going to lose a game this season. And they still won. Last year, in fact, they won one game when Robbie Avila scored in single digits, and it was the overtime game against UMass when Amari McCautry, a true freshman, came out and scored, I think, 21 points, had 6 assists and 8 rebounds, I want to say. So last year, all these bench players had to be heroic for SLU to win a game against a bad team when Robbie didn't score double-digit points. So for Robbie to have 8 points, 0 in a first half where they led by 8, and for them to do that is unbelievable. Almost equally unbelievable. And this requires a little context. Do you know what a Twitter Spaces are?
No.
Okay, so on Twitter, you can open up your Twitter, and you can click if you hold down the tweet, that plus button, instead of making a tweet, you can click on this little purple one that makes a Twitter Spaces, and it's basically an audio thing where people on Twitter just click on it and then they can listen to you guys kind of have a little bit of an impromptu podcast. And what you can really do that's cool is that people can request to become a speaker, and you can let them in. They can ask a question, and you can boot them and things like that. So in the past, Carter Chapley, who used to be here, who's now working for Cincinnati FC in the MLS, he was a writer at the Post-Dispatch. He would do them after a lot of SLU games. The first couple of years I was on the beat, and we did a couple of them last year. There's a lot of great fan accounts around the Billikens of guys who went to school there and are now doing a lot of other stuff, but are very active in the community and have a lot of big fan base around them. So last night, after the STL Sports Central post game wrapped up, and you can go back and watch me and Eric Sontag breaking down the game for about 20 minutes because we had the Mizzou game right on our back. I saw a space was going by my good friends West Pine Bills, who's 2 guys up in Chicago who run an account together, and they were running a spaces. I jumped in, had a couple great comments, had a nice little conversation throughout some of the stats that I was talking about in the post game. It was great. And then one of the hosts from WPB says, we're getting a request for a speaker from the official SLU account, so I'm going to see what this is all about. He adds the speaker, and all the other guys were surprised by this after the fact. As soon as he said that, I 100% knew what was happening, but it was the coolest thing ever. Josh Schertz jumps into the Twitter Spaces with all the fans. Brian Kunderman, the incredible guy who always helps us out with interviews and things like that, had got it on his phone, entered in. Schertz goes on. Kunderman hands it to him. Schertz then talks to the fans. Already, just what an incredible moment.
That's awesome.
He stays on for 8 minutes and takes questions from people in the Twitter Spaces.
How great is that?
I mean, the hashtag this guy gets it is what I put out there, because that level of talking to the fans, I don't know if I've ever seen that since I started covering sports professionally in St. Louis starting in 2013. I don't think there's ever been a coach who was that willing to reach out in such an impromptu, unofficial fashion like that and answer questions from just fans like that. And he's like, listen, this is why SLU's so great, is because you guys care about the sport. You guys are passionate about the sport. That I know for a fact, because some of those people listening meant the absolute world to them.
Mm-hmm.
These people put in a lot of money for a product over the last 6 or 7 years that hasn't given them a lot to cheer for.
Uh-huh.
And so to have a coach who acknowledges that and is then giving them something to cheer for, I mean, all like 60 or 70 people in there would have ran through a brick wall immediately. And then Ross Chapich jumped in a little bit later and had some good things to say about NIL and how proud he is of the team and how much he loves the fans and stuff for doing these kind of things. So, I mean, it's that kind of just like community that the Billikens are building and having everybody in. It's easy to build a community of just fans. It's easy to get, a couple people from the organization to buy in. It's hard to get the biggest people in the organization to show up for those kind of things, because they don't have to. They can collect their millions of dollars, and they don't always have to do that kind of stuff. Josh Schertz put together a great roster without having to do this kind of stuff, but he knows how important that is. I just thought, in for literally the biggest win in 5 or 6 years, I think Ross Chapitz even said it. I think that's the biggest win for SLU in the last 5 or 6 years. To have that moment and to say, wow, this is incredible. And you can set that aside and say, what a win for the Billikens. And then within the next hour and a half in the post game, to then build an entire secondary win with all these fans.
Fantastic.
That's how you build a program, and Schertz is doing it.
Yep, good for Brian Kunderman, good for Josh Schertz, and good for St. Louis University, now 14-1. Great job as always, Matthew.
Big game against LaSalle this weekend.
Let's go beat those LaSalle Flyers.
There you go.
Flyers? Dayton Flyers.
There you go. It's
LaSalle Explorers.
Yep.
There we go, Explorers.
There you go. Nicely done.
Thank you. Wilson getting us on the air here, and we appreciate you joining the chat and being a part of the Randy Karraker Show with Matthew Rocchio here on STL Sports Central, presented by DraftKings, where the crown is yours. We'll see you next time.